The one thing I learned is how to use local materials, because if I'm going to make anything, I'd better make it out of things that are around me. And so one thing that Auckland has a lot of is actually like shipping containers. So what this is this is interesting, being able to use shipping containers for an aquaponic garden. It has a couple of interesting scalability options, because it's on a shipping container, that means you can move it anywhere in the whole world. One of my big ideas behind this actually when I started was to see if I can build a mobile garden that can feed up to 100 people within a space of like 3 weeks. So we have two halves of a shipping container. So pretty much we took a shipping container, cut it in the middle, flipped it around, reinforced it, and the whole idea is we're going to use them as a fish tank. We'll actually line it with plywood, and then we're going to put like epoxy resin, pretty much raise like some edible fish. So what happens is the water from the fish tank, there's a pump on the inside that brings the water through this pipe, and this comes in and pretty much irrigates the water as normal. I just pulled out a lot of plants, things that were overgrown all the way. And then the water drains back through gravity, and then I have a sump pump that pulls it back. So this is the return. Normally if this was big and I was doing commercial fish, I'd probably raise my baby fish here. I have one of my computers inside here, and I'm actually collecting data. I have like a temperature probe, I have humidity, water temperature, I have a pH, I have a EC and conductivity, I have an oxygen probe. The different icons will actually change color. Like blue shows me it's okay. Red shows it's probably like the pH is off, like that's about 9.3. So I need to do something about that. So there's this data I'm collecting. The other thing the computer is doing is it's keeping the flood and cycles up and down. It also controls that. Pretty much all these things build around being able to create food really quickly. And so the whole idea is, how do you go somewhere there's no food and make food? There are no farms around. The closest farms are more than 100 miles away. And there's all these unused spaces, and there's all these people without jobs. I can't stop thinking that we can actually get good economies and be able to create like good careers out of places that people neglect. I have fish in a regular tank. So you can have any kind of fish, either ornament fish or edible fish. They poo and they pee. So in my case, I pump all that waste. I have a pump that's activated through gravity. That's when the water returns and it's high enough. The float switch is gonna kick in and the water comes out and pumps through the grid. And all the fish waste basically gets spread around in the garden. The plants grow off the fish waste. So between the bacteria and the plants, we create a filtration system for the fish, and that's aquaponics. That's my workshop. It just came in last week. This is going to be a shop for my CNC router, and then that's going to be a computer room, and then the other side there'll be like a wood workshop. So one of the things that's prevented me to, in a way, get into the business of aquaponics and a lot of things is I have to make something and I have to ship. And so actually making gardens is easy. It's another thing to turn it into a product that you can actually ship. And so part of it is like adopting a lot of a knockdown technology, things that allow you to make things that can break down and assemble the same way that I made. And so this machine, with the precision it has, allows me to do that, because I can make something and I can almost guarantee that when somebody opens it up, that it's going to work okay. So the new gardens come as a kit, all designed and cut with the CNC cut, and they pretty much come in like Lego pieces. So you can just build them up yourself, really quickly put a garden up like that. And before you know, you have something like this. It's nice, being able to make a garden that can fit in a warehouse, go outside, into your office, into your home, and then really be able to carry the same idea into a garden you can actually take and ship somewhere where people need food. I have another garden here. We built this so that we can simulate sort of living environment and trying to see like how a garden would actually practically fit into people's lifestyles. Normally what we do as people that live in urban areas is somebody somewhere in a farm grows a lot of food for us. And I go to the store and I buy enough food to come put in my fridge for 2 weeks. That to me is like going to my computer lab to use a computer, or going to the library to use a computer. I think this changes it, because to me, when I need food, I can just get the food that I need, and pretty much the computer takes care of it. So this is like the controller. In this case, the sensors plug in here. That monitor like how deep the water is. That's an infrared sensor, and I shoot like a beam on the water and it reflects, and I can tell like how deep the water is in the grow bed. The sensors monitors what the light is, temperature, pH, oxygen levels, how fast the water is flowing in the pipes. I can actually tell my water is draining, and just allows me to do the same things I would physically do to the garden, but to be able to do them remotely. Pump on. Pretty much it's orange, and then now see just turned blue. So now I should actually see water flowing. In a very short while, it should be like, hey, I'm not even supposed to be on. So it should just turn itself off. Each garden also comes with a camera. You say like they made like a funny shape. Mm-hmm. That was a condition that happens in nature, and they get like fish kill at night, because during summer, photosynthesis stops during the day. So your plants are using oxygen, your fish are using oxygen, your bacteria is using oxygen, and then your temperatures are hotter, so there's like less oxygen in the water. And it only happens like at about 3 a.m. in the morning, and people wake up and like in the ocean, suddenly all your fish are dead. So I was able to recreate those without even knowing, and I was able to catch it. And that's sort of what I mean by using data to learn. These are springtails. They're bugs that live in the grow bed. In my case, what I do is after harvesting, I tell my computer to flood my water more. And all these springtails and any other bugs all come to the top. And when they come to the top, pretty much drop down the drain. So pretty much by using my computer, I get rid of all the bugs in my garden while feeding a fish. So I call it smart organic control. This is one of my favorite places. I have like a, oh shoot, you guys just came when I have new chicks. See the hen they just hatched?
Oh yeah.
She's been like incubating on those eggs. They just hatched actually just today. All the animals here are rescue chickens. Wow, see our bunnies? The rabbits are rescues. One day, I was coming here while heading to San Francisco, and I found a chicken outside with 12 babies. They look like they'd just been hatched that day on those really hot summer days. I'm like, what are you doing outside? You know, they look like they're suffering. I gave them water on my palm, and they followed me. So one of the things I also do here is I put a lot of grass here, but I also recycle a lot of the waste around. And so I put it here because the rabbits like it, and they dig holes underneath and they can eat it. But actually every day I usually take some and I give some to the chickens on the other side. I actually takes like almost an hour to feed everything and just like give them water. So that's rabbit food and chicken food. And I have new babies, I'm gonna have to do like a third kind of food. The point is like the management of these things become really cumbersome really quickly. This is still at the point where I do it manually. What I found is like the last thing for me in anything that I do is actually the computer. This one, the biggest problem is giving them water. If that becomes a problem, I'm probably gonna put like an automatic watering thing. But now it's still easy. So there's no reason to put a computer. I take this out behind to the chickens. And so usually the only time I'll go to silicon chips is when everything outgrows me. And so normally these are things I do every morning and evening. Before I get eggs, I try to make sure I give them what they need or make them happy. So one of the things I do is I give them, they really like oyster shells. When I actually started giving them, their eggs improved. Yeah, they really like it. I grew up in farms in Kenya. I had no interest in farming. But after college and all that, studied electronics, and then after I finished electronics, I came to the USA to learn to study software. And so one of the problems I had was like feeding these every day. But now what I do is I 3D printed these things, and they make it really easy now. And so this was one problem that led to automation, because I have to feed them every day. I'm not a chicken farmer. They can't be taking like so much of my time. And so those are things that start leading to like, okay, maybe this is a problem I can automate. I know this coop looks weird, but I actually designed this from my computer. These are waste products that come from the pallets from the shipping container. And so this is a whole freestanding structure, just with nothing but these are pallets. Okay, and so the other thing that I do is I made like DIY nesting boxes, but this is still taking a lot of time because when I don't have time to come, then I end up like throwing eggs because they've been sitting on them for a while. See what I mean? And so they're getting like broody. This is another problem that's taking me a lot of time that actually leads to a good reason for automation. It's only after I do something for a very long time manually that it actually shows me what to automate. All these boxes will be on the outside and the eggs will be rolling outside, and I'll have things that count them. And one of the reasons that the chickens become broody is because they sleep at night inside. And so I'll have this thing that actually closes the door at night. I'm gonna have solenoids that open the door here and the door outside. And so the problems I'm having is like that broodiness is a big problem. Collecting the eggs is a big problem. Making sure they have food and water is a big problem. Making sure they have the different food that they need when they need is a big problem. And so all these things just end up taking so much time until like, you know what, maybe this one is worth developing. This is the thing that's gonna control my whole chicken coop. And so it doesn't matter whichever application I'm doing, my one board has everything. And so I have sensors that will detect, say, like the ammonia, CO2 detecting dust. So if I don't clean the coop up, a lot of ammonia builds up. And so this has a sensor that will tell me how much food is left. This one is for my watering. Those all sensors and the water will come out of the other side straight to the nipples. And so I have, these are the solenoids on the ground that will actually run all the 3 pumps. And so like, for instance, chicken could close, I think. Control that on. Like this was actually a stash of unwanted babies. I found like 20 eggs in the bush one day. And then this was sort of like my first DIY coop out of just materials that were up here. But this one actually was all computer controlled. When I eventually locked the chicken here, I was still in San Francisco. And I would have to come from San Francisco to come over here to make sure they have food and water and then go back to the city. So it became really expensive for me to come every day just for this reason. So I started free ranging the chickens. And so what started out as a problem of a chicken out on the street with just then what I was learning and the information I was learning. And then when I started doing it, then I realized like, wait, everybody that has chickens has the same problem. There's a big push now for free ranging chickens. And then slowly that scalability starts coming in. But all the things I'm telling you and everything that I do, I actually catalog everything. Every egg that I'm getting, every time I give them new food, like when the food gets finished, and all that stuff slowly becoming actually my chicken program. I can see like food finished. I bought food on that day. It doesn't mean I wasn't feeding them, I was just not giving them the food that they want. But I can see the effect of that data for a couple of days after those issues. You know, when I started feeding them oyster shells, the eggs changed. I can drop that egg from here and it won't break. A long time ago it would just break for no reason. You know, and so being able to collect all that data, all these things will later be sensors. How many eggs did I collect? How did I collect them? You know, how many were broken? How many were double? How many were weird? Pretty much I use the same board that I made. Pretty much one side is Linux and the other side is the same chip as an Arduino Mega. And then I have more than 10 shields on the board. And so I actually need nothing else. These here are RFID tags for my chickens. So the thing has like an RFID reader. You'll be able to get an egg and scan it and actually be able to see what that mother of that chicken has been doing since it was a little. Normally what I do is I just take a plate, cut my next one, goes in my sandwich, the next one goes into my burrito, my next one. So by the time I get to that side, this side is actually grown. I like food. And the more I make it, I realize like, why do you have to spend so much money to actually make something that we need as humans, especially something so nutritious? And so it's become IKEA style because remember I was talking about the big problems of making things I can ship. I've redesigned a lot of these things so they all knock down in flat pack and actually ship them.
Could this become like an appliance for people to put in their houses?
Pretty much. It's become the same size as a kitchen counter and it's become smaller. So I found like, okay, aquaponics is productive. You can grow a lot of things, nutritious. It has advantages of recycling water. You know, it's almost chemical free. But what I found is to have a garden that I can eat off every day, especially a smart one, has forced me to have certain kind of crops. And so being able to grow a lot of things that will be ready in 3 months from today does not actually make sense to me for a garden, especially that's in my office. I like to grow things that will grow almost quickly, that are high nutrition. And so that's if I do like plants that you cut and they come again. These are really yummy. These are like sunflower sprouts. They're the easiest things to eat in the whole world. This one garden gives me up to 500 plates of food every year. I just pull them like that and I cut off the, normally when there's a lot, just one handful is enough to fill the plate. I fish out the seeds. These are really some of the most nutritious plants in the whole world. And so like now, if I had nothing, like I never eat cranberry. I can't stand it because it wasn't something that grows in Africa. Like so yummy, I don't even know what to say. The whole idea, this has turned out into a project for me of how do you help people get like the 5-7 helpings of vegetables that the doctor recommends they get them once a day. And so the whole thing of turning this into a product to give people in the house, I'm not giving them an aquaponic garden. Really what I'm giving you is like at least one of the helpings that the doctor says you should get every day. You get it every day and you get it fresh. And you know what? Your phone might help you because it might send you a picture when things become such a size and tell you like, guess what? You have a baked potato in your cupboard. And so this is like a 1-year collection of food from just this kind of garden. You know, it has all its software and automation and sensors to go with it. And so I can see now the same sensor set overlaid and things like changing. Light sensor, see what happens when I take it away. Do you see it went off?
Yep.
The more and more I get into automation, the more and more I find myself looking at microbes more. The more and more I spend times with the microscope, the more and more I realize that the things I can't see are actually to the answers to the things that I need. I make my own compost. This is actually
High quality compost, right?
yes, because what I do is I inoculate it actually further. So if you touch this, if you put your hand here.
It's warm.
Yeah, because that means it's active. And believe it or not, this one is not even supposed to be active. So you put your hand, it's actually really, really hot.
So this is vermicompost.
Yeah, there's worms inside, so just natural part of my inoculation. I get this from the Mandela grocery every week. I just got this actually. And then I take like old compost. And so because this one I'd already inoculated it with a lot of fungi and microbes, it probably has like so much fungi in it that mushrooms actually pop up. What I'm trying to do is recreate my soil food web. Because it all started with, I got into plants when I discovered plants can grow without soil. I really like aquaponics because of the whole bacterial cycle. But there's always something missing because why can't you grow these kind of plants in aquaponics? When I discovered about microbes, pretty much what I discovered was about the soil food web and pretty much how plants talk to things that are living microorganisms in the soil and they make food for them. This year is interesting. One of the things I did when I went to many labs was actually to focus on my school kit programs. You probably saw the aquaponics one.
That one.
And then I decided like, you know what? Aquaponics is too difficult. Let me make it simpler. Because I started coming out of more microbes and actually, as I started doing more and more soil. So this was actually you'd make your own compost teas and actually like a soil garden. And then like make your own DIY sensors that can actually tell you like how much moisture is here versus how much water has been sucked. So the whole idea is like I realized the smart aquaponics part was too difficult. And so the whole thing is like, okay, if I have soil and water, what do I do? Can I make my own composts? Can I make my own microbes? Can I do all that stuff to make my own tea? And so what it's getting to is it's more like how do I combine the soil and the microbes and then combine it with aquaponics? How do I make the best of all? Because there's not one single one that's better than the other. It's now I'm starting to integrate pots. So I grow a lot of my plants on pots and aquaponics because the bottom can get like all the benefits of aquaponics, but the top, I have all the soil that allows me to do whatever microbe technology I want. And so in the process, I can grow plants quickly without a lot of water, but also be able to get ability to grow things or not be able to grow in aquaponics. What, first of all, a lot of data has confirmed for me is that what happens in nature is actually what happens. That I could try to automate everything the way I think automation should be. But the closer and closer I bring everything closer to how it works in nature, then the less and less I actually notice the technology.
So by knowing more data, you say that nature makes more and more sense.
Yes, and the solutions that I end up creating as an engineer end up being more natural, more human.